As a modern forager, there are two things that you should remember about finding edible wild plants. And we need to know these two things because we... Now, the first rule you have to remember is that food is where the water is. The further away you are from water, the further away you are from food. Now, it can be salt water or it can be fresh water. That doesn't make much difference, except it makes a difference in what type of plants are there or what type of animals they are. But the point is, food is where the water is. The farther you are away from water, the farther you are away from food. The other point to remember is that there are usually more edible species in an old city park than there are out in the wilderness or in the mountains. Now, I know that seems a bit counterintuitive, but it really isn't. A large portion of the edible weeds just follow man. They are an addition to the native species, so they tend to grow where he lives, and that tends to be in urban areas. To demonstrate my point, I'm going to walk around a small city park. For educational purposes, we will temporarily set aside the issue of whether the water is wholesome or the soil is wholesome. This is a good place to identify edible species. It's a good little training ground, so to speak. This is Lake Lily in Maitland, Florida. Now, elsewhere it would be a pond, but in Florida, every body of water that's larger than a puddle is a lake. Now, just because I'm in Florida in February, don't think that you don't have these plants. Most of these plants, if not the species and the genera, are throughout North America and most of the world. They're weeds that follow man. And what we're going to do is I'm simply going to wander around here and see what species we can find. Ibis, I think. Edible, but not too much on there. Now, before I get started, there are 7 species planted around here, 7 rare species that they're so obvious I really don't need to mention them, but I will, but I won't take too much time with them. They planted oaks here. There are roses, the Podocarpus macrophyllus, the sycamore palms, dahoon hollies, and Japan hollies. The latter, of course, is a hedge. So there's 7 useful species. We didn't have really to take a step anywheres. Tansy mustards are called that because they kind of look like a tansy. Let's see if we can take a little closer look at this little mustard. One of the identifying characteristics is this very, very feathery leaf. That's where it gets its name for tansy. But also up here, little typical 4-petal mustard blossoms, but the seed pods are called salix. You can see them kind of sticking up like little tiny toothpicks up from below the blossoms. Those are salix, little tiny seed pods. And most of your mustards have them, although we'll see one today that doesn't. But most of your mustards have those little tiny salix seed pods. These little clover-like plants are Oxalis. I think this one's called Oxalis stricta. Double blossom, double leaves. Very tart. They're a sorrel. We'll see, probably see some more here today with different species. Muscovy ducks. Actually eaten by many people around the world, but they're very fast, kind of like chickens. They can really run away. Quickest way to get one of these is with your cast net. You thought cast nets were just for catching fish? Contraire. You can get duck for supper if you got a cast net. We really don't have to go too far to find some things. Here are some dollar weeds, or pennywatts, hydrocotyles, or hydrocotyls. And over here, right next to it, right here is there's a second-year Lepidium, virginicum, or peppergrass. We've got the basal rosette down here, and of course the very characteristic seeds up here. We're probably going to take a closer look at those seeds. With many mustards, they often overwinter as green under the snow, and in the springtime, when the first things you'll see is little patches of green against all that dry fields, and that will be little mustards or lepidiums. Let's see if we get a really good close look at the Lepidium virginicum's blossoms and seed pods. There they are. On the second-year plants. Use them like pepper. Put them in soups, trailside Nemo. Here we have a little stand of Crepus japonica, or Crepus youngia, or Youngia japonica. We keep kind of changing the name. A little similar, like, and these are nice little greens in the springtime. Don't grow too. I don't think they're too bitter. Very nice. Right next here in the park. This little miscreant is Pellitory, also called cucumber weed, because when you crush it, it smells like cucumbers. and you can eat it raw or cooked, although you should check and make sure it doesn't make you itch first, because some people it does make them itch. Pellitory. We have two edibles right here. This is Bulrush, and that's Bulrush, that's one word with one L. It's also a Scirpus. It has sugar and starch in its roots. It can be used very similar to cattails. And of course these are Nuphar lutea, the yellow pond lilies. They have blossoms that can be used. The blossoms turn into seed capsules, and the seeds can be processed and eaten. And also young leaves are also edible. Now you'll read in an awful lot of foraging books that the roots of these things are edible. Don't you believe it? Don't waste your time. I also happen to find down there some Bacopa monnieri, or water hyssop. It's on the bitter side. You could throw it in a salad or make a tea out of it, but its prime use is medicinal. It has a lot of research behind it that says this is very, very good for your memory. Whether you have a memory problem or not, it can improve the memories of people who have Alzheimer's and also people who just want better memories. A lot of good research behind it. Bacopa monnieri grows everywhere around here. Now, I am not a mollusk expert, but these look like apple snails to me. Even if they're not, freshwater snails are edible when you cook them. And these are good size, by the way. There are several apple snails in Florida, one native and several escapees, one of which, of course, was a delicacy and was used to actually cultivate an escargot industry in the Orient. So don't forget, these are edible too, except you must cook them very thoroughly. They've got a lot of, they can have bacteria and parasites in them from where they live, so you have to make sure that they're very, very well cooked. Now, this is not a place that you want to go rolling around the grass, because all this greenery you see against this background, that's all stinging nettles. If you went rolling in that, you would be hurting for a long time and in a big way. However, there's an awful lot of food right here. Stinging nettle. Let's see if we can get a closer look at the stinging nettle and me not get stung. Little hairs all along the stem, also on the leaves. Oops, darn it. Oh, didn't work. Well, things I do for science. This, and this is the hand that got stung, by the way, this is a very chopped off amaranth. And it's not the spiny amaranth, so it's probably the hybridus. Amaranth. And right next to it is what I call swine crest. Right here. We have to talk about swine crest a little. Its botanical name is Chironopus didymus. And that means, well, there's no gentle way to getting around it. First of all, Chironopus means crowfoot, because they think the leaf structure kind of like crowfoot. But didymus is Latinized, a Greek word that means testes, and it refers to the seed pods. This one does not have a salique. It has a little pair of testes seed pods. Let's see if we can take a look at them. This is not going to be easy, but there you can see the little seed pods right there, two of them together. That's didymus. And you know what? I think I just sat on a stinging nettle. Oh, Lord. The hand and the body. Oh, well. This is a Salix asper, our Spiny Sow Thistle. It's the prime edible this time of year, but we're not going to eat this one because it grows right next to the railroad tracks beside the park. And this is the last place you want to forage from. Railroad tracks are among the most polluted property in the world, so do not forage near railroad tracks. Here we have three nice sow thistles. You can tell because of the way the leaf grabs the stem in a circular fashion. This is another Salix asper. That's not what I want to look at. We're going to look at a little plant right here, hard to see, and that is the Bittercress, another little mustard. And this time I'm going to watch out for the stinging nettles. This isn't going to be easy because this plant is tiny, but there we go. I think it's Cairina hirsuta, or the Bittercress, Hairy Bittercress. Notice the salix, the little seed pods. See how they go up? Actually, the plant is in the wrong configuration. It grows this way, but I can't hold it that way. See if we can also get a picture of its leaf right here. There we go. There's a nice little picture of its leaf. The Cairina hirsuta, or the Hairy Bittercress. A nice little addition to your soups and salad and trailside nibble. One of the little mustards. It really doesn't seem to be much here, but if you look real closely, There's a duck's nest. I'm not quite sure if it's attended to or not. Now, all birds' eggs and all reptile eggs are edible at all stages of development. There are some fish eggs, however, we shouldn't eat, the gar among them. This plant is the controversial Solanum americanum. I eat the berries all the time, and cooked leaves can be eaten, but it's so fraught with issues that you should check it out on your own. Don't take my word for it on this one. Right next to it we have the young camphor tree. The young leaves can be used for spice of the dry, used sparingly. Over here is an elderberry growing up, and this is a Parietaria fetida or a skunk vine. Very, very nutritious. You have to cook it to get rid of the odor if you want, but you don't have to get it raw. So, that is potent. Things do line up here. Sow thistle, solanum, a lot of sow thistles right here, the swine crest. Then we have the stinging nettles, and another more sow thistle. Here we have Oxalis, that we saw earlier. Here are more stinging nettles. These are Pellitory. Up there we got some grapes. Of course, over there some sword ferns, one species of which has edible little nutlets. More Pellitory, and of course some Oxalics. And these are Oxalics articulata, I think. But if not, there'll be there's some Oxalic stricta and some more stinging nettles. This is Scirpus floridana. It has a root that's about the size of a little finger. It looks like a white grub, very tasty. The tops can be dried for tea, and they can also be eaten cooked as a famine food, although they're kind of musty. And right next to the Scirpus over here is some Drymeria cordata, a relative of the chickweed. It can be eaten sparingly. It has more medicinal uses than edible uses, but it can go in the salad. Willows. Famine food. Source of original aspirin. Very, very bitter, but can be eaten in a pinch. Don't forget fish and turtles. This is a stand of alligator flag. It has little tiny roots that you can eat. They turn pink and look like shrimps, but the main calling is you can use these leaves to wrap food in. And you can tell we're next to the road now. And this is the rest of Lake Lily from the other side. So there we are, back to where we started, and some 24 or more plants later. So, today we looked at weeds that follow man, and remember, food is where the water is. This is Green Dean. My website is eattheweeds.com. I want you to think green, I want you to eat green, and live green too. Toodles. And there's a Mama Muscovy and all her little ducklings.